Greetings everybody, welcome back to the Austin Lindsay channel. Today I'm doing a review of this Dehancer. It's a Photoshop and Lightroom plugin, and they also do have versions for Adobe Premiere Pro, I believe DaVinci Resolve, and I think they're working on a version for Final Cut Pro. So you can check their website, I'll put the link in the description and you can see what they have to offer. So in full disclosure, they did send this program to me, but all the opinions are my own and they don't get to review this video before it goes out. So I'm going to just show you how this works in Lightroom really quickly as a plugin. So what we have here is a house just around my neighborhood. So I'm going to go ahead and just do some adjustments on this thing in Lightroom to kind of adjust some of the exposure and some of the little tweaks before I bring it into Dehancer. Alright, so now that I have this photo looking how I want in Lightroom, what I'm going to do is bring it into Dehancer. So let me go ahead and show you how to add Dehancer as a somewhat of a default editor in Lightroom. So you're going to go into your preferences and then you're going to go into external editing. And then normally you have Photoshop here, which is your main editor. What you do down here is you add Dehancer. So you go ahead and it probably will be blank. So you can go ahead and choose the application that you want. You'll go ahead and choose Dehancer in your applications, and then this will become the default program for this secondary external editor. And then you want to choose file format TIFF, and then currently Dehancer only works in sRGB color space, so you want to choose that. And then I've chosen 16 bits, kept it at 240 resolution, and then no compression. And then once you do all this, you can close your window. And now when you go and right click, you'll have edit in. You normally have your Photoshop. You'll see Dehancer pop up right here. All right, now we have this in Dehancer. What you have over here on the left hand side is you have some film profiles. You can actually sort by different types of film, color negative, motion picture, all that type. You can leave it on all films. And then you can also either you can click this drop down and it'll bring up all this list of films, so you can look for it by name. And then you can also just scroll down the list. This is kind of a visual representation of this list right here. So and if you like something, you can just click on this and then click on the heart up here and it'll add it into your favorites. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to my favorites, and then it'll show my list of favorites here. And then as I click on them, it'll preview them in the larger window here. So I'm liking this Cinestill 50D. So once I got that set, what I can do is come over to my right hand side. You have a few options you can tweak. You can bring your temperature cooler or warmer, double click on it and it'll bring it back to normal. And then same thing with your tint. You have your tint and defringing, and then you have your black point. You can bring this up or down. You can bring your white point up, which right here looks really good to me in this image. And then you can change your color mode to Luma or keep it on normal. You also have these little modules you can uncheck or check to just see what you've done within that module, very similar to Lightroom. And then you can hide these when you're not using them. You have a print option here to change different colors of papers, and then your whites and your exposures depending on what papers you're using. You have your color head over here, which will allow you to adjust the color a little bit more, kind of fine tune that how you like, and then you can preserve, your exposure, change how much of an impact it has. Then I'll go ahead and reset this and then hide this module. Film grain is something I really like in this program. One thing I do wish is you can change the size. Even on the smallest size, I feel like this grain is just a little bit too large. Let me go to 1:1. So this is as small as I can get it, and I feel like the grain is a little too large, which I guess if it's a film emulator, that's something you're stuck with in film. So it does make sense that you're stuck with it in the digital version. But as a person who likes customization and tweakability, that's why I brought this up. Other than that, you can adjust your amount, bring more or less in, change the resolution, where it sits in the shadows, midtones, highlights. One thing you can do is you can change it to a positive film, which this to me does feel like it makes it a little bit smaller. So if on the negative side the grain is feeling a little too big or pronounced, you can bring it to positive and then it'll back it down a little bit. We're going to leave that here for now. I do love the film grain. It gives that kind of natural feel and look to the image. We're going to go ahead and hide this. We're going to enable halation. Halation is basically a little bit of bleeding between your contrast areas, so your lights and your darks. Let's find a contrast area. So like right here on the porch, between the lights and the darks, you'll get a little bit of film bleed or redness bleed in the film. You can see without it and with it. And then you have a bunch of options you can tweak here. Your source limiter here will limit how much basically of the halation will show up. And then you can change your background gain, the smoothness. You can change the local diffusion and the global diffusion, so it kind of smears around the image a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and reset this, bring this source limiter up just a little bit because I don't want it to be too much, because sometimes it'll make your image look a little bit warmer if you have too much halation going on. So you can see the before and after gives just a little bit of warmth to the image and some classic vibes to it. We'll go ahead and hide this. We'll bring in bloom. Bloom, what it does, it's a little bit harder to see on this type of image. It's really good for if you have lights in the background. So basically what it does is it acts like having a diffusion filter over your lens. So any light source or highlight point, it'll actually kind of smear it and blur it around. So for instance, let's go to 1:1 again on this porch area, and here in the sidewalk, you'll notice it's a little bit hazy around the brighter areas. You can go ahead and change the source limiter, do a similar thing as in the halation, but you can adjust your details and how much diffusion you have. So this works a lot better on, say, night shots, and again where you have points of light rather than daylight shots. But it does give you a nice little haze over the image, which could be really nice for your aesthetic if that's something you're going for. So we're gonna go ahead and reset this and turn it off. And then the last one here is vignette. You can add a nice vignette. I personally think this does a little bit better job at vignetting than Lightroom does. I feel like it's a little bit smoother, a little bit more organic than Lightroom. So generally, if I'm gonna put a vignette on an image, I'm gonna start using this program to do so. So then once you're done and you're happy with your image, you can push OK. Once you push OK, it brings you back into Lightroom, and then you have a version of your image with the Dehancer effects, and then a version of the image without the Dehancer effects. Alright guys, that was a quick run through of the Dehancer plugin. I'm really enjoying this plugin. I think it's really well done. It produces a really nice look. I'm going to be using this a lot more in my images. So if you guys do have any questions, leave in the comments field. I'll do my best to answer them. And thanks everyone for watching.